Welcome to Grow Virtually, an online horticultural educational program presented by the Master Gardener Volunteers of Cobb County. Under the guidance of the University of Georgia Cooperative Extension Service, we grow gardeners.
The world of orchids and judging standards. We're going to learn what makes an orchid great. Dr. Fi Alonso obtained her PhD in microbiology and virology from the University of Alabama, Birmingham. Her career comprises 40 years of experience in research, development, and production of biological products and vaccines. She has worked at Sloan Kettering, the Salk Institute, and just recently retired after 27 years with Pfizer. So she comes from a medical research background, and her passion now, and has been, orchid culture and judging. She's currently the vice president of the Atlanta Orchid Society. She's a member of the American Orchid Society and is her third year as an AOS student judge with the Atlanta Judging Center. She's judged at shows throughout the Southeast as well as in California. She has a personal collection of over 300 orchids at the present time. So I heartily welcome Fi tonight as she helps us understand not only more about the orchid, but how we may learn to grow our own award-winning orchid.
So today's agenda, there are 6 topics that I will do my best to cover in 45 minutes. Starting with, we're going to have a game to start, Trivial Pursuit. What are orchids? A little about the American Orchid Society, and then segue into the Atlantic Orchid Society. And I will talk about how to judge an orchid, and orchid shows and exhibits will be the last topic. And if I have time at the end, I brought here the materials to show a demo how to repot an orchid. I just bought this orchid. This is my 303rd orchid now. Last Saturday, we had our Atlanta Orchid Show. It was our 62nd orchid show. All right. First question. Do you know what this is? So, true or false? Vanilla, a popular flavoring, is derived from the pods of an orchid. Yes. That particular orchid was Vanilla planifolia, and it's a popular flavoring. And here's what it looks like, the pods, right, when you fertilize the ovary. And these are grown in vines, right? I think this picture is from Madagascar, if I'm not mistaken. But it's common, in Mexico and wherever they're growing vanilla. Okay, second question. You see this lady with a small pot and a big orchid. What is the name of the largest orchid species known for its large, showy flowers and native to tropical regions of Southeast Asia? Okay, it is Grammatophyllum speciosum, or also known as the giant orchid, also known as the showy flowered orchid, and it's actually a stamp in Thailand. A stamp. That was a stamp, yes. Okay, last question. Which orchid genus is known for its characteristic lady slipper-shaped pouch that traps insects aiding in pollination? Ta-da! Cypripedium acauli. And I thought this was the best looking slipper orchid, and I put it right by. It's not a Labutan shoe though, but anyway, found mostly in the eastern part of the United States. And there are more in that Cypripedium genus. Yes. This one is Paphipetalum, also known as lady slipper orchids. Here's Malipoense, Paphipetalum malipoense from China. And this is my favorite. I think it's so pretty. Fairy-anum. You see the handlebar mustache. And this is known as the king of Paphipetalum, Rothschildiana. And this is a Paphipetalum that is multi-flowered. Most paphs are single blooms, right? This one is multi-flowered. And this one happens to have 4 blooms, but I've seen last year in Savannah one that had 5 blooms, which got awarded. All right, what are orchids? Just really quickly, here's a picture of Dendrobium nobile. I mean, that's a lot of blooms. And usually they send the student judge to count blooms. Okay, so that's our job when we are judging. The largest flowering plant family on Earth, there are 25,000+ species of orchids. Okay, and there are 200,000+ hybrids. Some of them are not even named yet. And I thought I brought someone here. Well, I have a picture of someone that's not named. The Royal Horticultural Society is where we register orchids. And as I noted here, there are many that are not even registered yet. And all species can be found on any continent except for Antarctica, unless somebody finds one soon. For now, none. So what's special about orchids? They're zygomorphic. What does it mean? Basically, you have unequal segments that are, if you put a longitudinal line passing through the axis, you will find symmetry. Okay? Exactly the same. So this is one of the attributes of an orchid that the judge will look at. Is it symmetrical? Now, if you have one bloom, just like Paphipetalum, that's one bloom that has to be perfect. No scratches, no dents, no stains, nothing. It has to be perfect. If you have several blooms, like in the case of these Phalaenopsis, you have more chance of, one may have a slight fall, but then you have many blooms to look at. Then the orchid judge will look at it like, how is it arranged? Is it beautifully shingled, not crowded? So, and orchids have 3 sepals, that's the outermost segment, and 3 petals. And so, sepal, okay, can it show? It doesn't show on this. Okay, well, sepals are the outermost, and then petals, and then there's one petal is always the lip. Okay. The other unique thing about orchids is 2 of their reproductive parts. The column and the pollinia. What are those? Anybody know this? Orchids apifera. This is known as the bee orchid. Look at the beautiful landing pad. That's the lip of the orchid. Okay, it will attract the pollinators. I don't know this particular one, what the pollinator is, but it will land on the landing pad. And then the column, it can't point. Okay, the column is that long thing there. Okay, that's really the stamens and the pistil fused together. And then the anther cap is the top part of the column. And finally, you have those 2 globules. Those are the pollinia, which are basically masses of pollen. So they're encased so that really they should not contribute to hay fever in the spring, because they are contained in mass globules called pollinia. All right, a little bit more on orchids. So they have names, except when you purchase them from a big box store, like, I don't know, Home Depot, Kroger, although now they've started putting names. Just Add Ice orchids. I'm like, okay, that's not really a name. At least they could give the name of the genus, okay? So, as I mentioned earlier, where you register your orchids, if you want to name it, you can name it with the Royal Horticultural Society. And you're all master gardeners, so you know you always have a genus and a species. And typically, the the genus is, the species is Latinized Greek, and sometimes it's named after scientists. In this case, that Cattleya over there at the corner is Cattleya warscewiczii, whose named after Josef Warsiewicz, who was a discoverer of orchids, and he discovered this orchid, which is Cattleya dowiana, in Costa Rica. There, at that time, they didn't know anything about yellow Cattleyas. This was the first yellow Cattleya that they saw in nature. Okay. And then the genus and the species, you always italicize it. And hybrid names, you know, you can name whatever you want. This particular orchid is called Brassocatleya yellowbird. I guess it looks like a yellowbird. It is yellow in color. And cultivar names, so when you win an award from the American Orchid Society, if it doesn't have a cultivar name, you can name it. So in this case, Phalaenopsis meva smartissimo was named after me from my partner. So he won this in 2018, an award of merit from the American Orchid Society. And this is blooming now, but it's big, so I couldn't carry it. I'm sorry. That would have been nice if I could have brought it. All right, so a little bit now about American Orchid Society. This is our logo, and the American Orchid Society has been around for 103 years. We actually were supposed to celebrate the centennial back in 2021. Unfortunately, COVID came, really impacted a lot of people, including the American Orchid Society. So they had to postpone their centennial. So it was held in April 2022. And that was the first AOS members meeting that I attended. And I met all these well-known judges, and I participated in judging with them in their teams. And I was like, I kept on one particular team that I was in. We were 10. There were 10 famous judges there, and I was the only student judge. It was my second month as a student judge, and I was like so nervous. I had to tell the team captain, Dr. Motes, please understand, I'm a student judge. It's only my second month. He said, "Don't worry, I'll just make you count blooms," which is what I ended up doing. But it's okay, I learned a lot. And it's interesting, you know, when you have brilliant minds that gather. So the vision, a world where orchids are protected, cultivated, and enjoyed, and then the mission. So cultivate passion and stewardship throughout the world of orchids, and so on. You can read that. So I have 5 slides that I'm talking about history of the American Orchid Society, just notable points, okay? Starting in 1921. This is our orchid seal of the American Orchid Society, and it can be found in this show trophy, which I'll pass around. And it's actually a picture of a Native American admiring 2 orchids of the Americas, Phragmipedium caudatum, that's how it looks like, although, you know, it's kind of hard to see in the seal, and Encyclia tampensis, okay, which is the border. So the first orchid show held in the United States was held in Boston in this horticultural hall in May 8 to 11, 1924. When I look back what days they were of the week, it was Thursday to Sunday, which happens to be when we hold orchid shows. Usually it starts on a Friday, set up Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And you know, there's so many orchid shows going on now in the United States. And I will show you, my last slide will be, there are 4 orchid shows coming up in the southeast area where you can just drive. 1932 started the publication of what was known as the AOS Bulletin. And now it's this Orchids magazine, and this is what it looks like. And this is a picture of a Phalaenopsis hybrid that's colored red, like really deep red. And it was grown by, I'll just pass it, grown by Carl Smith. That's a really famous nursery in Apopka, Florida. And I'm heading there the first weekend of April. Okay. So in 1946, they recognized a need for more regional representation. And that's when they created affiliated societies. 1947, the Atlanta Orchid Society was founded. So really close to when it all started. And there are about 550 plus affiliated societies. And then 1949 was when they officially started judging by committee, awards. And they created these judging centers, starting in New York City. Atlanta was created in 1973. And I'll talk a little bit about the Atlanta Judging Center. So this is important in the 60s, right? AOS funded research on meristem cultivation. So you can grow orchids from seeds, and the seeds are really small, and it takes 2 years to get to yay high. But meristem, you know, you have, sometimes you can cut, in this particular case, I would have brought this better example, like dendrobium. It's easily, you can cut the stem and root it, and then you can plant it. So whatever. Not so much, this one you would do divisions rather than meristem. Okay, and then 1996, we launched the first website. So finally, you know, the American Orchid Society has its presence on the World Wide Web. And then this is my last historical perspective of the American Orchid Society. 60 years they were in Harvard, then they moved to Florida, probably because it was easier to grow orchids in Florida rather than in Boston. So then they moved to Delray Beach, and finally it's home now. The headquarters is in Coral Gables, Florida. And they have a huge library at the Fairchild Tropical Botanic Gardens. Anybody been there? No. Really? Oh, okay. Beautiful. It's worth it. All right, so now I switch to the Atlanta Orchid Society. So as I mentioned earlier, we were founded in 1947. We're nonprofit, I think as you are, nonprofit, right? For people to learn about orchids, share their knowledge and experience, like what I'm doing here, and promote the love of orchids. So we have our website, and I have there the URL address, and yeah, I'm supposed to be secondly responsible for the website, and you have to learn WordPress, which is what we use for this platform. Okay, so somebody had asked me where we meet. So we meet at the Atlanta Botanical Garden every second Monday of the month. We gather at 7 o'clock, just like you're doing here. We have food and we socialize, and then our meetings start at 7:30. And usually it goes from 7:30 to 8:30 with a talk. So as vice president of the Atlanta Orchid Society, I invite many, many speakers to come. And then we have, at the end, ribbon judging. So the society members can bring in their orchids, and there are about 8, 9 of us judges who are part of the Atlanta Orchid Society, and we do the ribbon judging. And everybody gets either a white, well, not everybody, blue, red, or white ribbon. So, yeah. And as I noted here, the highlight of our year is this orchid show. So we just had our 62nd annual orchid show last weekend. And This is our exhibit. So, and I'll tell you a little bit what an exhibit means versus a display. So this is our exhibit. There were about, I don't know, 70 plants in here, 70 different orchids, and about a dozen of us that brought in orchids. So the difficult part with setting an exhibit for a society is because you don't know what orchids you have that are coming to be put together. So having to design the exhibit is very challenging, as opposed to a vendor who has his selection already of orchids, right? He knows what he's going to put together and set it up. And I'll show you later on how the different ways of setting up. But just quickly note that this particular exhibit has a lot of ribbons. And a lot of those golden yellow ribbons are rosettes, or they are the best in class, like best in Phalaenopsis class, and so on. And we won the AOS show trophy, which is hopefully being passed around with a silver certificate for 85 points. Who has my trophy? All right. I don't want that disappearing. Okay, so now I'll get to orchid judging. And this is where you'll learn what to look for in an orchid and how to win awards. So first, just quickly, judging centers. I noted earlier that there are several judging centers. There's 27 in the United States, and there's 9 sites. And I don't know these 9 sites, but judging takes place there. This is the calendar of events. Every green box is a judging going on in the United States. So every month, a judging center, people go to bring their orchids, and then they get judged. And we also provide judging service to what's called an AOS sanctioned show. That means, like our Atlanta Orchid Society annual show, that was an AOS sanctioned show. And that's where you get a show trophy from the American Orchid Society. And we also, I have not yet done this, but hopefully I will when I get promoted, judge at international orchid shows. Just maybe 2 weeks ago, was the World Orchid Congress in Taiwan. And oh my God, I just saw pictures and I wish I could have gone, because their orchids are like, I'll show you a couple of them. It was just awesome. So the Atlanta Judging Center, 73, I don't know this man. L. Stevenson is the chair. Currently, our chair is Doug Hartung. I don't know if you've heard of him, but this is email address. And our judging now takes place at Oglethorpe Presbyterian Church in Brookhaven, Georgia. And this is just an example of an orchid show. This was back in 2016. And, noon time, education, always training. And then 2 p.m. is AOS judging. So going back to this picture, that is a hybrid of Memoria Larry Hewer and Paphiopedilum armeniacum. Unnamed hybrid. I think it is named now, I don't know the name, but it was an unnamed hybrid then. And this won Best Flowering Show. And I was told there were at least 300 entries that time. And this is the best flower. I mean, it is pretty. Although, somebody told me, it's like, wow, that's a fancy toilet bowl. And I'm like, no, it's not. But anyway, it's very pretty, yellow, which is not very common for Paphiopedilum. Okay, so we have a judge's handbook, call it the Bible, about, how many pages? A little over 100 pages long. And I'm just citing here where, if you see JH, that means Judging Handbook, section 4.1. This was in Guayaquil, Ecuador. I didn't take this picture, Cindy did. She was supposed to give the talk. She gave me this picture. So this is just an example of judging wherein you're measuring the flower, the bloom. You know, natural spread, horizontal, natural spread, vertical, and so on. So this is the steps for judging. Starting out as a student, and then you hope 3 years you become promoted to an associate judge, because then your vote counts. As a student, your vote doesn't count. You're there to learn, so you're not supposed to know anything. And then 3 more years you get accredited, so that's 6 years to become accredited. And then 10 years from accredited to senior, and so on. But bottom line, you're called a certified judge, and your vote counts, everything counts when you're in that category. And then when you're retired or retired emeritus, you're inactive. And yeah, stop there. Okay, so measuring. One of our tools is a measuring tape that has both inches and metric centimeters, because all our measurements are in the metric system. So I grew up in the Philippines. We were using metric system. I knew very well, you know, liters of gasoline, temperature in centigrade. But I have a hard time living here, more years than I lived back home, to switch. But then I'm a scientist, so I go back to the metric system as a scientist. So anyway, it's confusing in my brain sometimes. But so there's measurements, and then somebody has to count the blooms for an award-winning plant, and then somebody takes pictures. And usually what you see in the Orchid Bulletin, Orchids magazine, wherever it is, that's my copy, it's always a black background, because it pops, right? You see the color pop. Now, if there are orchids right now that are very black blooms, that's a little bit difficult. So I don't know. And we're having a photographer, an official photographer, American Orchid Society, come give us a talk how to take pictures of orchids. So when we're judging, we are a team, a minimum of 3 certified judges. You can have however number of students, but a team is always 3 certified judges that sit together at a table. Somebody brings the orchid, usually the gopher, just student judge, and then we do the research. So this is what we're calling AOS judging. It's more intense than ribbon judging, which I'll show later. And this is our big reference database, Orchid Pro, that's in the American Orchid Society website. So we do research. We check, is the name of the orchid correct, right? I mean, some people have brought in wrong names, wrong name tags, I can tell you. And then you check the parents, because to award an orchid, it has to be better than other awarded orchids or its parents. So unfortunately, this one is fading away, but this won an award of merit last Saturday. She had like 13, 14 blooms on each side, and very bright yellow, and still smelled nice. Now it's like on its last leg, but she serves the purpose. So, judging scale. That's this Cattleya Dowiana. And this is we have actually a scorecard. So, there are 9 classifications at the top, and then we look at the flower form, the color of the flower, and other characteristics, like in this case, the team captain will say, judge the orchid under Cattleya, because it is a Cattleya. Sometimes we go to general. And one thing unique about the Cattleya genus is what's called stem. The Cattleya stem is very, is it turgid? Sturdy, turgid. and does not need staking. So they take points off. If you stake it, then it doesn't need to be staked. That means it's a weak stem, right? So anyway, and so on the left, you see AM, AOS means Award of Merit for 83 points. On the right, this is the highest award. It's called a First Class Certificate, or FCC, for 92 points. And I'll show that shortly. So, there are many awards from the American Orchid Society, and this one I'll have to go quick. Starting with quality awards. Okay. So, as I said, FCC, First Class Certificate, you can read that. So here's an example of an HCC. This is the Paph Rothschildianum I told you was the king of the Paphipetalums. This got 78 points. Look at the form. Look at so the dorsal sepal is on the top, right? The bottom is the synsepal, and then the arms are the petals. Okay, look at that. The pouch, the color, and the shape. So then I'll show you an FCC winner. Can you tell me what's different? Look at the dorsal sepal, it's wider, okay? The petals that go this way, the other one is kind of twisted, so that's a little bit of a fault, take points off that. This one is straighter, it's also wider, the petals are wider, and then you see the pouch, huge. It practically covers the synsepal, which is behind it. And I have notes here that NSH is natural spread. So the natural spread horizontal is from one petal to the other. That's 31 centimeters. The other one was only 27.5 centimeters. Okay? And then the number, the vertical, it's not so big, 12.5 versus 13. Okay, that's fine. But if you look at the blooms, 3 blooms, 0 buds on 1 inflorescence. This one has 8 blooms, 2 buds on 2 inflorescences. That's a winner. Okay. More on quality awards. This one is a Phalaenopsis equestris, another species. Look at the form. Okay, you recognize the sepal, the petals, the lip. This one got an HCC, which is the lowest quality award. This is an AM. This was at our judging center August last year. Okay. Do you see why this one got an AM? The overall form, you see what's called windows. It's like gaps. This one is fuller looking, flatter, fuller. Also, the natural spread, very similar, but the number of blooms, 27 blooms, 55, it should have been 31, sorry. Yeah, they should have been 31, my bad. So, a lot more blooms in this one. Okay, the last, did I miss something? Yeah, I missed something. Okay, it's all right. So, this is what we student judges have to write every month, a practice award description. This is what I call a little bit backward kind of prose, because there's a template, there's a form. So you start off with talk about the flowers, the segments, the sepals, and then you talk about the form, the color, and so on. But every awarded orchid will have an award description published in the American Orchid Society website. So we have to learn all these terminologies like distally recurved, or the color, petals ovovate. I mean, I gotta remember all those. Anyway, and substance, firm, texture, crystalline. This particular orchid, if you shine a light, And you'll see orchid judges go into the sun and looking under the light, it will glisten. It's crystal. All right. Cultural awards, I'm going to have to go quickly. Cultural excellence, cultural merit. This is, again, Dowiana, and it has 9 blooms on 3 inflorescences. So the color here is a little different from this color. And anyway, this one got a CCM of 82 points. Here's Paphipetalum rothschildianum again, a CCM, 14 blooms. Okay, 1 bud and 5 inflorescences. That's just it. So cultural awards are awarded to the exhibitor, not to the plant. So this is your time to show off. How good are you as a cultivator? And just a story there of the award description. Okay, here's another cultural award. This one is a Phalaenopsis pulcherrima, okay, with a CCM. So just show you the beauty and the foliage are included and the size and everything. And this, okay, this was in 2021. I have never seen 100 points given for a cultural award. And then it got also an FCC, the first class certificate of 91 points. So it is Rhinanthera inshutiana. Christelle is the cultivar name. And that's the enlarged picture. This was from Carl Smith. So this is the nursery that I talked about earlier. They're going to be hosting the April members meeting in Apopka, Florida.
Well, your blossoms are all different times of the year,
Yes.
so that you have to take it to a show for that.
Correct. And I have missed many, many judgings and many shows because my orchids do not want to cooperate with me. So she just made it for Saturday, but then she's downhill. So some people I know, they go to different judging centers just because their orchid was ready for the judging. They'll drive hundreds of miles to bring it. So anyway, really quickly, this one is meant for species. It's not scored, it's just awarded what's called a certificate of botanical recognition for worthy, for rarity, novelty, or educational value. So this one is a judge from our Atlanta Judging Center. He called it missed opportunity. Okay, the next one is another botanical award called Horticultural Merit. And this one has that range of points. And this is awarded again to the exhibitor in this case. This one happens to come from the Philippines, specifically the province of Pangasinan. So they call it Silogeny pangasinensis. Pangasinanensis. Interesting. But look at the glossiness of the leaves. Yeah. Okay. And then this one, hybridizing award. Okay, you're gonna love this. An award of distinction. It's not scored, and it's a team decision. That's, I think, 14 plants right there. And Lehua orchids in Hawaii, they're famous for their Paphipetalum hybrids. So here's one hybrid from that bunch that was awarded an HCC, highly commend, the third. See the difference? They're the same seedlings, right, from across, but there are differences. And I know you can tell the difference now, probably. Dorsal sepal, look at the petals, and the pouch. And hybridizing awards, this is award of quality. Look at that. There has to be 14 plants, 12 plants, different clones, and you got to bring it for judging, and they all have to be blooming at the same time. So I have 21 seedlings that we grew from a flask 2 years ago, we got the flask from Sunset Valley Orchids, Fred Clark's the owner, and he sent us, and so we grew 21 out of, I don't know how many were in that flask. So in January, started blooming, some of them too. And then February, another two. I'm like, can't you all bloom at the same time? So I have now 8 blooming, but I need 12. So not quite there yet, it's tough. But just see the difference. And which one do you think is prettier?
Right.
Bingo. Ah, you know how to judge now. Congratulations. Okay. And judges' commendation. Okay, again, I'm back to my Dawiana. This is my favorite orchid, Cattleya. So this one got a JC for its lip. Little different from here, right? This one, different color, right? And this one, another different lip. But the problem with Dawiana is that you can tell the petals are like this. They flop forward. That is a flaw, but because she's a species and that's how she's supposed to be, they award her. But then when they were breeding yellow Cattleyas in the 60s, in the 70s, they wanted to eliminate that. And it was very easy, and I have a whole talk about it, how they eliminated the petal flopping forward. Anyway, that's another talk.
We hope that you will find our information informative and helpful. Thanks for watching, and please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel.